Anyone there? Hi, Tony.
Good evening. Am I the only one here?
No, I
Oh.
see
Hi, everyone.
86513, and I'm assuming it's Sidorine.
How you doing today, ma'am?
I'm okay, thank you. Did I change my name? I didn't even know.
I see a number, not your name. So,
Oh my God.
I see you're feeling better today.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right. Hi, Celestine. Hi, Dao.
Good evening, Coach.
Hi.
Good evening. Celestine, I hope your connection is better today.
Can you hear me now? I think it's
we can hear you now.
Yes, it's better today, hopefully.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so today my goal is to ensure that we have a detailed understanding of capacity planning. So that's what we will prioritize now. And then as we do that exercise, I would also want us to take advantage of it to understand where hourly estimation applies, or what's the relationship with hourly estimation based on what we learned in our last session regarding story pointing at user story level. So this capacity planning will help us understand when we should apply hourly estimation. So after that, then we can take on any questions. So we will not be doing any daily Scrum. I want to safely assume that by now, we all should be able to confidently facilitate any daily Scrum session. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. All right, I'm just looking for the capacity planning tool here. Just give me a second. All right, right here. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you understand by capacity planning?
Capacity planning will be putting together the hours that it would take for a particular task to be done in a sprint.
Okay. Thanks for that input. Who else?
Okay, it's the total effort that the team has for the week. And it's probably my understanding, it's how much availability the Scrum team has for the sprint. And this may vary based on the team members being on vacation or of team members' availability.
Awesome, thanks for that. Any other thoughts?
I think it's a type of estimation, depending on the complexity, the risk and the effort that would be required.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
To me, I think it's when the team just try to come up with a schedule.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Celestine? What do you think? I guess Celestine went off again or something. If you're talking, we cannot hear you. You're on mute. All right, for the sake of time, I'll move on. Celestine, if you have any thoughts, feel free to put it on the comment section. So, I would lean towards what Mukuka said. I'll lean towards what Mukuka said. So, Toyin, capacity planning is not an estimation technique. An estimation technique would mean we are estimating the work that we want to do, which story pointing that we saw in our last class is one of the estimation techniques, the relative estimation techniques that are out there. Capacity planning is not about estimating the work. Capacity planning is about getting a big picture of the effort that we have available as a team. The capacity that we have available as a team. So as we plan the work, we estimate this work and do everything we did last week. Okay. The next thing to look at is, do we even have the capacity to do this work? So this exercise is that opportunity for you to figure out if you have that capacity to do that work. And the reason why you're figuring out this, why it is important, is so that you're not setting unrealistic commitments for yourself. If you're setting unrealistic commitment, you're already setting yourself up for failure. And you don't want that as a team. So capacity planning would be you all coming together, evaluating, okay, given that each person has 8 hours in a day to offer. In a sprint, that is if you're doing 2-week sprints, it means that each person should be given 8 hours, 80 hours per sprint for that entire 10 days, 10 business days of that sprint. And then if you're 10 in a team, so that will be 80 times 10. So that the total of that will be your total team capacity. Now that you have the team capacity, you will use that capacity available and gauge with what the capacity required to do the work to see if that commitment is realistic or not. And then you make adjustments on your plan, on what you're bringing into the sprint or what you're finally taking to work on in the sprint based on that information. That's it. Let's just use it. I like to use very simple examples that we all can relate to. Imagine that, okay, I'm just going to use a simple scenario here. So I'm actually a deaconess at my church, for those who are familiar with church activities or church leadership. So the governor of the mayor, if I remember correctly, I think is the mayor of one of the cities where the church is located. The mayor was supposed to be hosting the leadership of the church. And then they're asking, the key people, which again, I'm the board, I'm the deaconess board chair of the church. So the key people of these different leadership positions of the church were supposed to, go. Please mute yourself. Idowu. Okay. We're supposed to go and, be with that, meet that man. And it was, I think it was a lunch or something. And then my response to them was, so they called me and they're asking me, okay, this is supposed to happen for 3 days consecutively. And then they're asking me, oh, Karen, this is going, we have this opportunity to connect with the mayor, and we want you to be part of it and all of that. I'm like, well, I understand my position and I understand that these are the things that I'm committed to do, but I don't have the capacity. I can only do 1 day, but the other 2 days, I will not be able to. Yeah, I'm part of the team, but I will not be able to for the other 2 days, you see. So now, based on that information, they will not expect, so whatever work that was, or whatever discussion that we're supposed to do, they will take that information that I've provided, and then they will make sure that they're not committing me to something that I would definitely not be there. So I will not be able to do it. You see, so what kind of adjustments can we make around that? That's the kind of thoughts that I start thinking. If the work that we have to execute is everything in that sprint backlog, is that critical or high priority that the customers want it by the end of the sprint? And now that yeah, we don't have the capacity available because of, time offs, holidays, other things that people are doing, whatever that is. What do we do? What are the trade-offs that we can do around here? Okay. Do we borrow skills from another team? Do we look for a backup person to fill that role if it's something that must be done? Or if it's not that high priority, okay, do we just not let's say if the people that will be doing the work for that sprint, if they can take on my own piece of the work and do it and still meet the commitment, given the remaining capacities they have, fine. If they have the skills, if they don't have the skills, okay, if it's not that high priority, let's just leave it alone until when Karen is available, or let's not even do it at all, or if it's not that important, you see. So that's the kind of conversation that happens around, based on this information, based on this data that we are gathering here, that we will use to make adjustments to make sure that we are setting realistic commitments. So that's the line of conversation. And then one other importance of this information is that, leadership, most of the time, especially product owners, their own is to say yes, 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 yes to everything that is being requested of them. They are really not in the developer's shoes to understand what they're feeling, what they're going through, and how they're struggling, how they are being burnt out because they are overloading them. And then as a Scrum Master, you're supposed to protect your team and developers too. It's easy for you to just tell the product owner that we don't have the capacity. We cannot do this work because we are only 4 people here, and what you're taking, we need like 8 people to do the work based on the fact that each person has 8 hours per day to offer. It's easier to keep saying this, but the product owner, because there is really no realistic evidence data for the product owner to go by, the product owner may not take you seriously. There's one thing that I always tell people: if you don't have data, you are just another person in a room with your own opinion, and nobody cares about your opinion. That's how powerful data is. So just taking time to put this together and creating visual for you all on that team to see it, it's really important, because when you talk, now you will be explaining and you're showing, everyone is saying here, it's a fact. This is all we have as a team, so we should plan around our capacity. Now we are already taking work that requires like 4 weeks if we put all those hours together. But here it only shows that we have all the hours with probably 2 weeks. So how are we going to meet that? But now the PO can clearly see for a fact that, okay, that's the truth. You cannot clone yourself. So they would be bound for you all to, they'll be more open to make adjustments so that you all are not being burnt out, because we don't encourage burnout, working overtime in an agile environment. We don't encourage that. So that is really the whole point of this, of capacity planning. Now, the good news is that most organizations, depending on the tool they are using, if your organization is using Agile DevOps has a capacity planner in it. So you will not need to do no manual anything, nothing. All you have to do as a Scrum Master is remind your team members as a new sprint is coming up that, okay, this new sprint is coming up, please go in there and put your capacity. They'll go in there and update it, put in the hours that they are available for that sprint. And then Agile DevOps will do the math for you, and then you'll see the total capacity you have available. They use that information to do your planning. But if you're using something like Jira doesn't have it. Default Jira doesn't have it. So that is why you see some teams, they would tend to manual tools like Excel spreadsheet, capacity planner. And I mean, this kind of thing is sold in most on most agile websites. You can buy this there. And in addition to that, Jira, it has a capacity planner, but it's not part of the default Jira. So if you see that, oh, you're working in an organization that don't have one, if you don't want to rely on the manual one, which is what we will be learning today, just sell it to your organization. Tell them, oh, we need this, show the need for it, and then they will buy that add-on from Atlassian Jira and add it to your default Jira. So to make things easy for you. But again, most of these organizations, they will tell you how budget is. There is no budget. Budget is tight and all of that. And yet you need to help your teams to be successful. So you will not just sit and fold your arms and be like, okay, if you don't want to provide that, then that's your problem. No, you will need to figure something out. That is what Scrum Masters do. Help the teams figure it out, while you're waiting, while they're being patient and waiting for whatever they've requested to happen. So if you find yourself in that position, this is what you'll be using. And to be honest with you, the working Scrum Masters through this community, I would say at least 60% of them use a manual capacity planner, because the organizations that they find themselves, they use Jira and they don't have the add-on one. They're trying to make them buy it and put it there. They keep dragging their feet. So that's another piece of information I wanted to provide. So which is why it is important that you understand this, how to calculate capacity here. I'm just going to take a pause here and check if there is any question before we do a walkthrough on what this is, whatever you're seeing is all about and how to go about it. Any question?
Question, Karen.
Mhm.
So I know you mentioned that we can, if we notice that our organizations don't have Jira. So I just want to check. So is this the tool that most companies use?
You mean this one? You mean the Jira?
No, not Jira, but this.
You mean this capacity planner?
Manual one.
No, this one is being Agile product.
Okay.
Yeah, so you will never ever see the same anywhere. This one is being Agile product, but it's been used in so many different organizations because we help organizations and then we have to figure it out. So this is part of but we charge them for it though. We charge them for it. This is part of what we bring to the teams. But when we are sending out the invoice, this is this is covered in that. And then also mentees, like let's say my level 3 mentees, our level 3 mentees, let's say if they come for their session and then they're like, oh, my team doesn't do capacity planning. Well, maybe they're explaining some certain challenge they're going through. And then I'm figuring out, I'm like, okay, I think do you currently do capacity planning? And they're like, no, we don't. I'm like, okay, I think if you do help them understand how to do capacity planning and then they do it, it will help you people to not keep carrying stories a lot, carrying over user stories. And then they're like, so where can I don't have a template, because again, that's part of what they paid for. I'm going to give this template to them, and then another way too is I will check, which tool does the organization use? Azure DevOps. Okay, if it's Azure DevOps, you're fine. If you want to pull up your board right now, are you able to pull up your board? I can show you where to find capacity planner on your board. So that's really how the conversation happens. But what you see right here is not the industry standard or anything like that. It's just internal to being Agile. But now when these people take it, they customize it to make it their own, to fit their needs.
Okay. So what I'm also getting from this is that the purpose or the significance of this is to help kind of work on tasks. So maybe because you said it's you're not supposed to carry over work, I guess. Okay,
remember what you said, Mukuka, that this helps team members to understand their capacity that is available, right? Okay. When you understand your capacity that is available, you will be able to compare with the capacity that is required to do the work.
Okay, all right. Now it makes sense.
Yes. And then when you make that comparison, you will make adjustments to your plans based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I get it.
Yeah, okay. So let me go ahead and explain how this works. But the concept that I'm explaining here doesn't only apply to this spreadsheet, though. It applies to industry standard. So regardless of the spreadsheet you find yourself using, you should be able to use that understanding to customize whatever spreadsheet you find yourself using in your organization. Okay. All right. So this has been formatted to also automatically update so many things, which makes our lives really easy. Now, let's first take a look at this here. These are the different Scrum events that this particular team was doing. They do sprint planning, retrospective. It's not in the sequential order, but these are the activities. They do review, they do refinement, daily scrum. Now, for this particular team, they typically spend averagely 1.25 hours, 1.25 hours for their sprint plannings, every sprint. And then they typically spend 45 minutes for their retrospective sessions. They typically spend 1 hour for their sprint reviews. And then they spend 3 hours in the sprints for their backlog refinement sessions. This particular team, what they used to do is they would have 1.5 hours per week. So every Thursday, they will have a backlog refinement session scheduled for 1.5 hours, twice in a sprint. And then they have daily scrum 15 minutes every day, except for the first day of the sprints. That's what this team will usually do. So meaning that averagely in the sprints, they will be spending 10.5 hours. Each person will be spending 10.5 hours in each of these events in total. So now that you'll be spending this time just for the planning, it means that this time is already factored out from the time that you will need to do actual work. So if you don't take that into account, that right there, you're setting unrealistic commitments already. All right, so now that's the average. So the assumption is that each person in a 2-week sprint, like I explained, have 80 hours, just like your regular job, right? In a 2 weeks work, your paycheck is, they give you a paycheck for 80 hours of work. Then that is the assumption. That is why you see 80 hours listed for everybody on this list. That's the assumption. Now, that's this first column. And then the second column here stands for the holidays, time off. Like now, Christmas season is coming. That's when you see them filling out this column like crazy, because most people are taking out. So they'll come here, they enter the number of days that they're going to be out. And then this events column is what we just explained here. We assume that everyone will be spending 10.5 hours for events. This column, technical, what is technical really stands again, which applies to this team, but it's common for most organizations. This captures other technical activities that team members may need to be doing in the sprints that is not directly related to doing the actual work. For example, someone like Jose, this first person, Jose is saying that he will be in other technical meetings or doing other technical activities for a total of 30 hours in that 2-week sprint based on his calendar, what he has on his calendar. So we need to take that into account, because if we are not considering this, we may be counting on Jose to do some work. Meanwhile, Jose will be in all these other meetings that are also that important. So, and when I see something like this, I really want to assume that this person must be the dev lead or the tech lead, because that's their job. Their job is to report up from a technical perspective. So they will usually be in all of these different technical meetings, and then they are solving technical problems, answering technical questions from their team members, all of these little kind of tasks. So they want to take that into account. That's how realistic an Agile team wants to be. And that's the beauty of Agile to me. Now, given that Jose too will be in this Scrum event meetings for 10.5 hours already, that puts Jose at. So by the way, let me just state this before you start spinning your brain. The formatting has been touched by a team member. We gave the person access and then the person messed the formatting up. So this math may not be correct. So, but don't rely on the math here. But keep in mind that if you subtract 10.5 hours from 80, it's going to be 69.5 hours left. Right? If you subtract 30, it's going to be 39.5 hours left. So here it's supposed to be 39.5 hours, not 29.5 hours. So this math is not correct. But what I want to also say is that, like right here, let's assume that Jose is going to be out for 1 day in the sprints for holidays. If I put it there, you see, it's automatically subtract it from here. So you are not the one doing all the manual math. All what the team is doing is they will come here and update their holiday hours. This year is standard. So these 2 columns, they're not touching it. Nobody's supposed to touch it because it's already formatted like that. This one, and then the events column is standard. Meanwhile, all they have to come now and update is their holidays and technical. Once they update that, then the sprints work. So this one means that this is the time available to do the sprint work. It will automatically update on its own. All right, let's pick on Mike. So Mike has 80 hours to offer in a sprint. And then Mike is saying that in this sprint, I'm going to be out for 2 days, and 2 days in the sprint is 16 hours. And then Mike will also be in this Scrum event for 10.5 hours. Mike said he's going to be in other technical meetings for 10 hours in total in the sprints. Maybe it's 1 hour each day in his calendar, whatever the schedule is, but in total, he's saying that he's going to be on other technical meetings for 10 hours in that sprint in total. So yeah, this one has also been messed up with. It's been messed up. So let's pick on Rebecca. So Rebecca is saying that he's going to be out for 1 day in this sprint. We want to take that into consideration. So look at this number and see what will happen. See, it has done the math. That's all. And then Rebecca is saying that she's going to be in other technical meetings for 2 hours in the sprint. See, it's done the math for us. So that's just it. So everyone as a sprint, before, let's say 2 to 3 days before the start of a new sprint, we want everyone to update their capacity here. And once they update the capacity, it will do the overall math for us. And now it's saying that in total, even though everyone has 80 hours in a sprint to give in a sprint, which will total 1,800, but what is really available to do the work is 1,070.5 hours. Imagine that you are not doing capacity planning exercise. Leaders will assume that this team, given the number of people that are in this team, they should have their capacity at 1,800 hours every sprint, which is not the reality. But now, because you're doing this, you can clearly, based on data, see the facts here. So instead of planning work around 1,800, which is not realistic, you're planning work around 1,070.5 hours. So this right here is your total sprint capacity. Meanwhile, the individual results here are the individual capacity. Now, how do you use this information? Given that we are estimating stories in points, not hours. So how are we able to apply this information? How do we know how many hours each user story will take? Because we've estimated them in story points. I'm sure that's a question most people have in their head right now, because that's a common question I get. So who can answer that question for us? How do we use this information, given that we are estimating our user stories in story points? Let me open the thing we did the last time.
I think we cumulatively want to see the availability of everyone, compare it to the result of our estimation, and identify where the gaps are. I mean, how much, so we go back to the story point and see if we can refine.
Okay.
Or we look for additional capacity to maybe borrow capacity from another team.
All right. I think the question is, how do we make the information on the capacity planner useful? Given that we have, remember, the story points, they are not ours. Remember, these are points, not ours, based on the conversation we had in our last class. So now, how do we make this capacity planning information useful to us, given that they are in ours? So how do we even know, where is that thing? All right, right here. How do we even know how many hours we would need to do this piece of work to complete chapter 6, for example? Because it's only if we know that information before the capacity planner can be useful to us. That's the question. So any thoughts from anyone else? Okay, let me share my, go ahead. Mhm.
I was just thinking, do we put it in one of the chats in the, what do you call it, comparative chat to see how?
Okay. So this is so at user story level, we estimate using story points. However, once we estimate using story points, each team or team members will now go into individual stories. Let me open the story. Let's open this in another link. Okay. So each team member will go, well, not each team member, the team members will have to now go into individual stories and create all the tasks that they will need to do to call the story complete. So let's say, for example, chapter 6, the different tasks that may be in chapter 6 is this. Let's say we're trying to create chapter 6, the different tasks that would be the standard task following the SDLC. You have to design, you have to develop, you have to test. Those are the standard components of SDLC. And then you'll have to review it. And then maybe they will need to submit it for approval or something. Yeah, those are the standard tasks that would be to create a user story that is usable, valuable, and shippable. So on each of these individual tasks, that is where team members will enter hours that they think will be needed to accomplish the work. Let's say, for example, so this free version doesn't give us the ability to create tasks, but the normal paid Jira version, if you go into each story, when you click on these 3 dots here, on the other paid version, you should see an option to create subtasks. That's what Jira calls it. Jira calls it subtask. So you will now, that's where you will create those subtasks. So under each story now, there will be different subtasks that the activities, that's what the subtask is, really the activities that they will have to do to call that story complete. So on each of those activities, that's where they will enter those hours. Let's say, for example, looking at chapter 6, they may be like, okay, I think I will need approximately 4 hours. Again, maybe they've done this before, so they'll go by historical data. If they've not done it before, it's just going to be really estimate. So I think it would take me 4 hours to design this piece of work. And then for the development, the person doing the development may be like, okay, I think it's going to take me 3 hours to do the development. The person doing the testing too may be like, so they're entering all those individual hours like that at that task level. Now, Jira, let's focus on Jira. They will enter those tasks on all of the stories that they are bringing into the sprints, and then Jira will automatically do the math for them and sum up the total. That's how you'll be able to see the total hours that is required to do the work. And then now, let's say, for example, we've entered all those estimates at the task level. That's what I need you all to get. That hours applies at task level. Not best practice though, not at user story level. Hours applies at task level. So once they enter all those hours, Jira will automatically, let's go back here. Let's go back to the product backlog view. So Jira will automatically do the math, and then you will be able to see the total hours that you need to accomplish all the work that you're bringing into the sprints. So where to find that in Jira? This version don't have it, but where you always find that in Jira is right here at the product backlog view. Hold on. So right here at the product backlog view, or the sprints that you're planning for, right here, there's usually some 3 dots right here. Right here, just the 3 dots look the same like this. If you click on those 3 dots option on each of the sprint backlog, you will see the total hours that is available, that Jira has summed it up for you. Let's say, for example, looking at all the work items that we currently have in in, let's say, the sprints 0.1, and that's the name of the sprint. So Jira would sum that up all for you. And let's say, for example, Jira is saying that, okay, based on the estimate you've put in here, you will need 1,000 hours in total to accomplish your work. That is the capacity required. And then now you will compare it with your capacity that is available. So you see, okay, we have 1,070.5 hours available. Okay, and then I think we're good to go. That's realistic. But if Jira is showing you that the total capacity that you need as a team to accomplish that work is, let's say, 2,000 hours, and they're looking at your capacity available, you only have this amount, 1,070, right there, you already know you're setting yourself up for failure. That's when you start discussing trade-off options. So what do we do now? Okay, we need to take out some work right now because we don't have the capacities to do it. Start having that conversation like that. And then you finally get to a point where whatever you have left in the sprints is close to what you have available to do the work. Now, keep in mind that there is something we call buffer capacity. So you don't always want to plan all your work until you're feeling the brim. You don't want to fill all of your capacity. You don't want to take work until you're feeling all 1,070 hours of work. You always want to leave some space for things like unknown. Because estimate are estimates. And then you start doing the work, you realize that, oh, it's a lot than what I thought. So the what you left, the buffer you left may be able to fill that gap. You see, so best practice, according to the Scrum Guide, you want to always leave minimum of 10% of your available capacity empty, so that when unknown happen, you'll be able to fall back to that buffer and use it in the sprint. So for example, 10% of 1,070, my math skills just flew through the window. So if someone can quickly do that math and tell us the result, or I can quickly punch my thing here.
107.
Good, okay. Yeah, so 107 will be what we will be leaving empty and not planning any work. We will not fill that capacity. So that if anything happens, any unforeseen circumstances, we know that, okay, we're on the safe side because we have some capacity left empty. So that is what capacity planning is all about. And that is that is where hours apply in this whole agile working concept. Any question?
So on this as well, I'm guessing that this detail in the capacity planning will also help us to identify who actually is available to do what. Because, for example, well, assuming we're not entirely cross-functional from the get-go, so then we know that, okay, this person isn't available or is available, then we can probably sequence the work accordingly.
Yes, exactly. So you're looking at it from two fronts. Overall team capacity, which is what we call team capacity, just like its name. And then we're also looking at individual capacity. That's what we're looking at. Because actually, we can actually have this 1,070 hours available. And then the work also requires that capacity. So at the overall level, you can think we are good. But now at the individual level, we may see that we may need someone, let's say Jose. Jose has the skills to do most of the development work, and then Jose is going to be out for the entire sprint. Clearly, we are lacking there. So that's the reason why it's important that we look at the capacity from two fronts, so that we're ensuring that at the end of the day, we still have all the skill set that is required to achieve a done increment at the end of the sprint with the capacity we have. You see, so that's really how it happens. Now, where does a Scrum Master fit into all of this? The good news is that you are really not the one doing all of this, everything I explained. So what you do as a Scrum Master is, or what I have done is, as the sprint is approaching, the new sprint planning is approaching, let's say 3 days to 4 days to the start of a new sprint. During a meeting like our daily Scrum, during parking lot, I already start reminding the team, remember to update your capacity. Remember to update your capacity. Not just that. I'm even going to send a follow-up email, just a reminder email, even though I've already thrown it out there during our daily Scrum. Send a reminder email, including the link to where we are saving our capacity planner spreadsheet, if the spreadsheet is what we are using. And then the team will, because they are the ones who really know their capacity, you don't know it. You don't know. They know it best. So they will come in here and then update these two sections that I explained. So your own is to ensure that it's done. You are not the one doing it. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is, sometimes Scrum Masters, especially those that their background was maybe the job they used to do before, you will work your ass out before you can earn any single dollar. Now they'll be thinking that, okay, I have to really put in work, do hard work before it means I'm doing my job. No, it's not your job to do. You're not a Scrum mommy or anything like that. Think about it. They know their capacity more than you do. They know the days that they'll be out, the days that they'll be in more than you do. So who will be the best person to take care of that kind of information? It should be them, because they know it more than you do. Instead of them telling you to go do it, it will be quicker, it will save time, and it's more efficient for them to just click on it and put in it themselves. See? Now, that's how you ensure that it's done. And then once we are doing our planning, the day of the planning, the very first thing I would do, this is what I'm pulling up first. And then we still, just to ensure that whatever has been entered in here is accurate, nothing has changed. Hardly ever will there be a sprint that nothing has changed from the last time they updated their capacity. Maybe if an unforeseen just popped up and then the person didn't even remember to come here and update it. Maybe the person only updated yesterday, and then today something has happened. Maybe their child is sick, they need to take the child to the hospital. But if not, it's not reflected in here. That is why I don't just trust what they've put in there and just run with it. Not that I don't trust them, but because maybe they're missing something, the blind spot. So as a good Scrum Master, I want to pull this up on the day of the planning and then just ask them. So you're really asking them questions. Team, are we still good? Is this up to date? Do we need to change anything? That's when you start seeing people and, making the adjustments that needs to be made, or they'll be like, oh no, I'm fine. Yeah. And then maybe you sent all that information with all the reminder. There was still there will always be that one or two people on the team that they're going their own direction. So, and then you're seeing their capacity there. You see numbers there and then you're thinking they are good. And then they're like, oh, I forgot to update my capacity. There will always be those kind of people. And then right there, they tell you what the information is. And then you yourself can just update it because you're already on the sheet, So that's really how it works. And then now you go, okay, team. So now keep in mind, this is what we have available. And then you go now to your planning and then you're doing your planning. Now that as you're doing the planning, everyone have in mind what they have available. So they'll be planning around that and not go over put work in the sprint or under put work in the sprint. So you're just planning enough based on your capacity available. So that's it. Any question, please?
Just a clarification on the number of hours and availability.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was, I think we saw earlier that it's 6.5 hours of focus in a day, not 8 hours.
I love that point. I love that point. Let me explain that. The way this really works in real life is if you are a full-time employee, a permanent employee, they will have to take into account your break time, the time that you will be on break, because definitely you will not be doing work while you're on break. And then maybe your break time per day, maybe 1 hour. And then the other 0.5 hour is you just lazing around, not being useful. So we want to be that realistic. So we factoring all of that, which is why we want to now safely assume that, okay, we only have 6.5 hours for every employee. But as a contractor, you're the one paying for your break. You're the one doing all that. So they don't take that into account. So we expect you to be useful for all 8 hours in a day. You see, so in reality, that's what I've really, what I've done working with organizations. So looking at this sheet here, let's say if we have some contractors here, let's say Mike is a contractor, it's not going to be 80 hours. No, for someone like Jose, let's say it may just be I'm not sure what the math is, 55 hours in a sprint instead of 80, because we factor in all the, break time and the useless time as well. And then Mike actually is a contractor. So Mike will be putting in all 8 hours of work because Mike is paying for his own break. And then, that's really it. I like that you raised that. But again, not all organizations take into account that. I'll give a typical example. I'm not going to call the organization's name. I've worked in a financial organization, a very huge one, which you would expect them to really really take into account employee wellness, but they are not. They consider their employees to be productive for 80 hours, which is not good. And then as a Scrum Master, what do you do in that kind of situation? It's your place because you're there to protect your team as well. So you keep approaching the people that are making decisions in your organization and explaining to them that, look, for us to really be realistic, come to think of it, they take breaks for 1 hour. So we have to take that into account as we plan the work. So if you're not taking that into account, we're just lying to ourselves or we're not being realistic. So you keep explaining these things to them and then hoping that they will get it and then they will make adjustments for the good of your team members. All right. Any other question, please? Are we good? Can we now safely say that we are capacity planning gurus?
Yes, now we are planning gurus.
Awesome. Great. I love that confidence. See, it cannot be more complex than this. What I've showed you all is the most complex it can get. Most organizations, you will find it easier because they will have the tool in there. Let's say, like if you're using Azure DevOps, it's 100% certain that you have the capacity planner in Azure DevOps. And you will not do nothing in there. Your own, again, is to just tell them, update your capacity. But first, you need to make sure that they know that the tool even has a capacity planner, because that's where also most of the time I'll have to do some work because they'll hardly ever know that it even has it because they're not familiar with these tools. And then you show them where it is and then you show them how to use it. Once they get how to use it, and then now you only need to ensure that they are putting in the hours before your sprint planning. You don't do anything. Okay. So we have 9 minutes left. Any other question from chapter 7? We have just one session left to go. So I mean, time really runs by so fast. I can't believe that it's already the end of the year. I've just really been reflecting. Usually around this time of the year is when I, look for all reasons to celebrate, be grateful, for those that I have, those that God has used me to impact in this whole Agile journey and stuff like that. And it just amazes me how time has flown by. So this is actually our last session for 2022. With that in mind, any question whatsoever?
Well, first of all, the exam is looming, sort of. I had thought, my intention is to do it this year. That's the plan, so that having considered that it's better to do it in 2022. So it's a qualification for 2022 rather than 2023. Okay. So it's just to get through the content and be confident and then go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So to that point, the approach or the suggestion that we always give, I'm sure you must have heard that as you listen to your materials, we would strongly recommend that don't wait for more than 10 days after. That is, if you've not taken it already, because around this time, most people in class have already taken their certifications. So if you haven't, don't wait after 10 days. The reason is because you may forget so many things. Number one. I'm in class. All right. I'm in class, okay? Sorry about it. Oh God. All right.
That's one of the developers.
I guess. Yeah, so it's highly recommended that you try your best to not wait until after 10 days, maybe late, in the sense that you may get demotivated, because right now you're still pumping, you're still really motivated. Based on my experience, you may get demotivated and then you may forget so many things. And I've seen people that don't stick to whatever advice I'm giving right now. The letter, I'll just give up and never even take the exams ever. And then you start, sometimes I like to just check with them, especially if I see them often. What's going on? And then they will be saying so many things that you don't even understand what they're saying, just giving excuses. So I'm saying that so that you don't find yourself in that place. And which is why we leave you to still have access to our materials up to 10 days after the end of the class. After the last day of the class, you will still have access to those recordings for 10 additional days, because you understand that you may need time to go back, sit down, review everything so that you're comfortable, you're not overwhelmed, you're not being all over the place. You structure your stuff before you go sit for your exams. So yes, please do not tarry.
So all the material after 10 days goes away?
Yeah, all the recordings, you will not have access to them after the 10 days, except for the PDF. The PDF is yours to keep forever.
Okay, all right.
And confidential too. It's very important that you remember that.
Oh yeah.
We've been in
in
situations where, I want to trust that you all understand that. And the reason why I keep emphasizing on this is because we've been in situations where we end up with copyright lawsuit on people that we've helped. I mean, I don't want a good relationship that we've established to not turn out to something else just because you choose to be dishonest, because we will find out as you share these things, we are able to track the data through our system. So we'll know. So please don't do that.
So the only question I had for you, like I was going at stages of team form in chapter 7, and I just wanted to ask, like, I'm sure with your experience, you've had like situations like, say, the storming stage where people, people are still getting to know each other, their differences and all that. What are some of the practical examples can you give on how you manage to overcome that stage as a Scrum Master, not get frustrated? Because I'm sure it can be frustrating dealing with
who is frustration helping?
I understand, but I mean, at the end of the day, you are human. And then, what were some of the techniques, or what are some of the techniques that have helped you to successfully move from the storming phase to the next stage? I found that really interesting in the team forming.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful
I really would
sections.
like a practical example of how you just kind of get through that.
Yeah, I believe that I explained that on the course, but it's okay. I like that you're even thinking about that, because that's going to be one of the most useful tools, that Tuckman model of team formation. That's what it's called, the model that is in this course. That's going to be one of the most useful tools that will help you throughout your career. So I would like to also say that as a Scrum Master or an Agile practitioner, part of your job or part of your responsibility is to learn the skills of dealing with your frustration. Because your frustration doesn't help nobody. And you're human, which you would definitely get frustrated. Most times too, to be honest. But now that is when you remember, I'm not sure if you all watched the show that I did with Bob Gallen. If you did not, please do. That is when you now start thinking of, okay, self-assessment. You start coaching your own self first. Start being intentional, practicing mindfulness as a coach. These are things that you have to learn. It has to be part of your daily life. If not, you can get into depression. Trust me, it's not easy to deal with so many grown adults. It's not easy with their own opinion and their own different things. You really can easily get frustrated and gradually depression start kicking in. So what I do is, first of all, before I walk into any session, every day, I practice what I call mindfulness. Remind myself of certain things. Remind myself that, okay, Karen, you're not supposed to impose nothing or force nobody on doing anything. You're only there to really influence them and be patient with them and to meet them where they're at and work together to achieve their goal. Like the same in class here. Before I come to this class every time, not just your badge, these are the same things that I do. Let's say, for example, if I'm expecting team members to have completed the assignment, they didn't, and now they are saying that, oh, I didn't, and even though I'm smiling, but in my mind, I'm like, what the, but I can easily do that. But now, because I know that these things happen, I need to train myself first to not get frustrated, to be able to control my emotions, because at the end of the day, getting frustrated will not help nobody. It will not. So how are you able to, control all these emotions and still help the team achieve your goal? So let's say, for example, if you're working with a team and they're currently going through the storming phase, the typical things that I have done is I explain to them the Tuckman model of team formation. That's the first thing I would do, so that they understand that this phase is normal, so that they don't quit. Because usually around the storming phase, that's when most people quit. I'm just going to use a simple, typical example. I don't know if that example was used in our lesson. Imagine that you were added on a WhatsApp group. That's a common thing that we see all the time, every day in our daily life. You just see, nobody even told you about any WhatsApp group, and then you just saw yourself added to a WhatsApp group. And the same for many other people added to the group. We don't even know what the goal is. We don't even know nothing. The stage has not been set here. Nobody has been communicated or kick off to get their buy-in that, yes, I want to be part of this. So whatever the purpose of the group is, I want to be part of this. And then everybody now is just floating, trying to figure it out, and they're asking questions. And then some people, they don't know each other. They don't know each other's personality. They're just being rude. And now some people cannot take it. They get frustrated, and they start seeing Celestine left, Mukuka left. At that point, they are going through the storming phase, because they are getting to understand each other, and people can easily give up because some people cannot just take it, But if they have the knowledge and the understanding that there are some certain phases that a team will have to go through before they finally get to performing, which is the ideal state. And then when they start going through that storming phase, they can easily now realize that, okay, yeah, this may be the storming phase. So they will now be able to intentionally exercise patience, be able to accommodate each other because they are aware. So that's the first thing I do. I make sure they have the knowledge. Secondly, there are typical activities like what we call team building activities. It's during that phase that you seek leaders will typically take team members for lunch. They go for maybe bowling game, those kind of little things. They play virtual games so that they can get to know each other a little bit outside of just work. It helps a lot. Team building is really the most after they get that knowledge. So that's really pretty much it for the typical things that I would do, because storming phase is really that phase where you need to pay attention. And then once you see that, now they're starting to trust each other. They're starting to realize that, this person is really not who I thought the person is. This person actually means well for me and for the entire team. I just had a misperception about this person. And then they'll now be open, start being open, wanting to reach out, helping this person, be chatty. And now with that, they start moving towards the norming phase, which is where we want to be. And then from there, they start performing. So that's how I've handled a situation like that, forming a new team.
Okay, so it sounds like those team building activities really help to break that ice.
Yeah, that's really the most team building
Effective
activities.
too.
And there are so many different kinds of team building activities, which I've given you examples already.
Okay.
But the first thing is make sure that they have the knowledge of the phases of team formation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know time is already gone, but I also found it interesting when you were talking about metrics and how, they shouldn't be used as a performance tool, but a quality tool. Because in my previous position, that was one of the biggest arguments I would have with my immediate supervisor, because I felt like metrics were being used
as a
punish.
performance tool, which wasn't the correct thing, because there was a few team members that were putting out quality, and I always kept saying, you people are so focused on numbers, why are you not focused on the quality? Because look, I get so many escalated calls and I'm always fixing problems, as opposed to you want me off the phone in 5 minutes, on to the next call. So it looks like I'm really not performing, but I am performing. But the problem is because you want these people who are using shortcuts, and in the process, the work is not being done. So it's actually refreshing to get a perspective where people, in Agile or in Scrum, we're looking more at quality than just quantity.
That's a great example. Yes, and that's why, as an organization, if you're not going Agile, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't. That is why.
I mean, I literally, like, when you were talking, I can see the gaps in my company.
In your organization.
In my organization. And I'm like, wow, this would really be great if management can latch onto this, but they're so hell-bent on, numbers.
You know what? That's what I usually tell people, that you don't have to only want to become a Scrum Master or an Agile coach before learning Agile. Everyone needs to be Agile, regardless of your job, regardless of your career. My husband is in research, so he's actually a clinical researcher. That's what he does. But because of how beautiful I've seen Agile and how it can really help organizations transform the way you do your work, the way you think, he was forced to attend the same class. Not because he was looking to become an Agile practitioner or anything like that, but it's helping him now do his job better. So I have so many students that will come here. Like last session, I had one student from UK. He's actually a director of something in an oil industry. Again, he only saw me online. And then thankfully too, he has people around him that has passed through the same program. So they recommended when he was doing his research. So he came here just to get the knowledge, not because he was looking to transition into any Agile role, so that he can be a better director at whatever he's already doing. So I'm telling you, again, referencing the show that Jeff Sutherland did, that I posted on the forum, he clearly said it. He said it there. If you didn't watch that show, please, again, I'll remind you, go watch it. In the next 4 to 5 years, that will be one of the prerequisites to get job in any organization. They'll be assessing your level of agility, regardless of the role, before you're passing that interview, because that's the kind of mindset we all need to have to be successful, because it's proven to work. Time with that number. Going back to metrics. Metrics should be used as an information radiator so that it can trigger conversation for you all to discuss around it based on that data, and then identify opportunities to continuously improve. That is the only purpose of metrics. It shouldn't be used as a hammer on the team, which is the mistake most organizations do, like what Mufuka explained. So that will be the end of my story today. Team, our next class is supposed to be on Tuesday next week. I'm actually traveling, but for your sake, I'm going to be taking my computer with me. So yes, I'll definitely show up on the day of the class, the last class. All right, I think that's it. Thank you all so much, and see you all next week, Tuesday.
Thank you.